Hi. He-Man and Skeletor love dancing together. They've been practicing their moves. They got the waltz kind of down, but they want to do something fancier like salsa, you know. It's just that they're not like they're not training it since they're kids, so it doesn't come naturally. They don't have that hip movement. See, like when you try to move their hips, they're really stiff. They can move sideways like this, but they can't swivel their hips, like no matter how hard they try. So, oh well, you guys have to try different things. They try to break dance, but like, their arms are really stiff because you guys do too many weights and you don't stretch enough. Doesn't mean you guys can't dance. Like this is beautiful. Stiffer dances, you guys are perfect for them. Maybe you can try a little, dirty dancing kind of maneuvers and stuff like that. You'll get it. Hi, my name is Umberto, and this is the unsafe zone where we tell each other secrets and we, learn from each other, and we help each other get through tough things in life. And I'm talking about He-Man, the He-Man franchise. This is the third and final episode of the 3-part series. And in this one, I want to talk about something that I learned as I was prepping these episodes. So I was talking to my mom, and I was mentioning that I was doing this series about He-Man and asking her if she remembers all the He-Man toys that my brother had, and when she sent me my Man-at-Arms toy when I was little. And of course she did. Then she said something very interesting that I certainly had never heard before. She said that He-Man was very, very valuable for my little brother when she got it for him. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? So it turns out when my little brother was 3 and I was, 7, my uncle, one of my mom's side of the family, my uncle was her little brother. He died, and he was very young. I think he was maybe 19 years old. And it was very sad. It was a tragedy in the family. I remember being at school, and some teacher came into the classroom, and me and my cousin, Giancarla, were in the same classroom. And they told us to come with them, and we didn't really know what was up. And they took us to the office, and then I remember them saying that our uncle had died. I don't remember what they said exactly. I just remember knowing, okay, and it was so hard to understand what that meant. I feel like my cousin got it a little better. Like, she seemed to be really affected. I didn't really understand the weight of the situation until I went to see my grandma, his mom, and she was completely devastated. Inconsolable. And she clung on to me for dear life because she saw me, and she called me Betico, and she just hugged me, wailing so hard and sobbing. And I was so confused. I was so scared. Didn't know what was happening. I mean, I knew what was happening, but I didn't know what was happening and how to react or what to do. So I just held her, and I tried to, pat her and tell her I loved her. And she just, oh my gosh, it was so heartbreaking. This was her little boy. And I can't imagine that pain. It was crazy. At the time we were the little ones, we were told that he had an accident. And it wasn't till years later where we found out he had committed suicide. And he was probably suffering from depression. And he had a lot of pressure, and he was in the Air Force. By the way, so his name was Osvaldo. Osvaldito, we called him. I only had a few memories of him because every time I would go over to visit my grandma, most often he wasn't actually around because he was in school and he was always going out and things like that. But the memories I had of him were amazing. This guy was a Superman. He was super tall, very muscular, super good looking, very awesome smile. And you would look up at him and just, he was a tower of a man. Everyone loved him. Everyone who knew him said, wow, what a personality, how outgoing. He was destined for the greatest things, you know? And that was my memory of him. I think that was everyone's memory of him. I remember being lifted by him, and it was just like, it was crazy. What I didn't know is my little brother, who didn't live in Colombia, so this is all in Colombia. He lived actually in the United States, but he had visited, and he apparently had formed this really strong bond with Osvaldito, even though my little brother was only 3, but he had had some experiences with him. So when my mom broke the news to him that uncle had died, even though he was only 3, this really affected him severely. And so what my mom says is she ended up buying, right around that time, she ended up buying one of these guys, sort of as some way to make him feel a little better. And what was interesting is my brother ended up sort of projecting the qualities of Uncle Osvaldito onto this little guy, or this big guy. Maybe because this is a super guy, this is a Superman, and he viewed his uncle in that way. So this became Uncle Osvaldito. Now, mind you, Uncle Osvaldito didn't look anything like this guy. First of all, he was dark-skinned. I mean, like, you know, his dad was from the Guajira, the coast of Colombia, so black, like Caribbean black. And so he was at the very least half black, but he was dark-skinned, tall, not thick like this, very muscular, but lean and tall, like a basketball player. In fact, he played basketball. He was a great basketball player. He loved the Sonics. Sonics, rest in peace as well, because we don't have Sonics here anymore. But that was Super He-Man, and that was Super Osvaldito. So my little brother apparently took this guy and projected onto him his uncle's properties. And then he started doing these rituals where he would bury He-Man to give him a burial, like a little funeral. And apparently he would do this all over the place. He'd do it outside, he'd do it indoors. Sometimes he would bury him higher up so he could be closer to the sky, and sometimes he'd bury him lower. And I had no idea about this. And I talked to my brother about it just last week. I wanted to know if he had any memories of this, and he didn't. He was too little. He doesn't really remember his uncle. He doesn't remember this. He didn't remember that that's what He-Man was, that he was using He-Man for that. He doesn't even remember a lot of his He-Man toys. He has memories of some of them, but I have such a clear memory of his He-Man toys. It was fascinating. So I was actually telling him the story, and it was shocking to him. And so I recommended that he talk to my mom about it, as he would probably find it very interesting. So yeah, that was an unexpected find. I had no clue that while I was feeling envy, which I talked about in the last episode, because my brother had all these He-Man toys and I only had a couple of He-Man toys, he was finding solace with these toys from the loss of his uncle. And he wasn't close to the family like I was, meaning I lived in Colombia, he lived up here, and he couldn't just easily travel anytime they wanted. These were big, carefully planned trips that didn't happen every year. So his way of grieving was at a distance. It was very difficult. I got to grieve on site, and actually most of my grieving process didn't happen till later because as I said, I didn't quite get exactly what it meant to lose someone, but I got what it meant to see my grandma in deep, deep suffering. So anyways, I wanted to share that. The other thing I said last time is I would introduce the secret character. I had so far I had showed you Man-at-Arms, which was the first little guy I ever had. I showed you certainly He-Man, and Skeletor, evil Skeletor. And then I showed you Prince Adam, right? Oh, and by the way, so here's Prince Adam's sword, right? This is presumably the same as this sword, but just when Prince Adam has it, it's pink. And it's the other complementary half of the sword that Skeletor has, which is purple. Now, the thing is, the He-Man sword has a little protrusion, a concave protrusion, and Skeletor's has a concave one. And you can just join them in beautiful love. I don't know what this is all supposed to mean, but... And it forms this amazing double sword. You could also do that with Prince Adam's. So what's interesting is either Prince Adam's or He-Man's sword joins with Skeletor's, but then one or the other is left by itself. It's like a little third wheel sword. Let me in. It's really kind of sad and funny. But I mentioned there was another character. Again, it's not going to be so shocking, but it is a beast of a character. Beast Man. The secret is I bought an anniversary edition pack many years ago that contained these characters, and Beastman was one of them, which is fitting. He was arguably Skeletor's main henchman. He's a beast, as you can see. His face is clownish. It reminds me actually of the House with 10,000 Corpses, or 1,000 Corpses, sorry. He's got pretty burly armor, and actually he's got it on both arms. You know, he's a little smarter than Man-at-Arms, right? Although it doesn't cover much, but he's a beast. What does he care? No leg protection either. But I'm sure this orange skin is pretty tough. And then he comes with this whip. This is pretty cool, right? It's pretty long. You can, do some damage. It doesn't whip very well, but you can imagine that it would. And then, and he's got this little chest thingy. I like Beastman. I never actually owned him as a child. My brother did. I liked him. I actually wanted to own him and Merman because both of them were in that first little booklet that I had, the one that I showed in the first episode, this one. So, those were the two henchmen that I saw, and I wanted to own them because, well, clearly, if they're good enough for Skeletor. Oh wait, sorry. This is the other booklet. Well, anyways, the one I showed in the first episode. So those were the two ones I wanted, Beastman and Merman. Unfortunately, I don't have a Merman to show you, but you can certainly imagine it. I also wanted to show you this. This is a book I bought a few years ago. It's pretty thick. It is essentially like this whole encyclopedia of He-Man. It's awesome. The cover art's really cool. It's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe mini comic collection. And as you can see, it's got tons of goodies. So all these stories, they're all in here. In fact, there you see Merman right there. And there's more. There's the history of He-Man, how the toy line came together, information about the cartoon they had. This is a pretty awesome book, honestly. If you were at all a fan of He-Man, I recommend getting this book. And I also realized there were characters that I never saw even in the cartoons or the stories, and that even my brother didn't own, which is interesting. Out of these, I think this one right here I had never actually seen. I did know about that one. I knew that one. I knew. So most of them I knew, but some of them I didn't know. There's also this guy back here. What is that guy's name? I don't know. Grizzlor. I think his name is Grizzlor. Yeah. Anyways, so great stuff. Chapter from my youth. We talked about how it represented masculinity in a weird way. We talked about how I got jealous because of my brother having more of these than I did, and how this developed into an unhealthy obsession with possessing things. And then we talked about how actually it helped my brother get through a pretty hard loss that he had when he was little, and that I wish I hadn't known that, but now I know. Tell me in the comments, did you have a similar experience with He-Man, or did you have a similar experience with other toy lines where it was attached to any particular parts in your life that were meaningful? And lastly, I'd love to know what you think about this question of what representing masculinity this way means? Do you see this as a positive, a negative, a neutral? What do you think it does to us? All right, and that's it. So thank you again for joining me. And the next set of videos, we're going to go in a different direction, but all these things are going to be related to stuff that I've liked and enjoyed and how it's related to moments that I've experienced in my life and lessons I've learned or not learned. So thanks again for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye. Hola, Osvaldito. No sé si te acuerdas de mí. Yo era muy chiquito cuando te fuiste de nuestro lado. Pero yo sí me acuerdo, por lo menos un poquito. Tengo recuerdos muy bonitos. Ojalá algún día veas esto. Y ojalá algún día nos reuniremos otra vez. Hasta ese día. Chao.